Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. It's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I had a regular subscriber link me a video from the guys called the Sidemen. Never heard of them before. Looks like mostly non-lifters doing a strength challenge, which, you know, I can appreciate. But it did involve KSI, who I have heard of. And, you know, I was asked, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about them showing this? What do you think about what they did? Do you think this is a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? So let me go ahead and put on my +5 hat of speechcraft, lovingly called my +5 hat of autism by many of you, and let's talk about this. All right, obviously, I am very much into strength challenges when they're legitimate strength challenges. Again, I'm a power lifter. I promote powerlifting, promote strength sports in general. So from that perspective, I think that can be a good thing. And honestly, I can appreciate the fact that you have some non-lifters who are trying to get into lifting, that they're trying to promote lifting. Actually, I'm going to say that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. My concern was, you know, again, the lack of form, lack of standards. And granted, I know that it can be fun. You get in with your bros at the gym. It's nice to have fun. You can have some friendly competition and stuff. And I don't think that's a bad thing, right? That can be a good thing. But it shouldn't be done at the expense of dangerous technique, dangerous form, things like that. Because, again, as fun as lifting heavy can be, it's not really a joke. I mean, a lot of us have been hurt. A lot of us have had injuries, have had to have surgeries, things like that from lifting heavy when something goes wrong. I mean, I personally have had a surgery before, about 15 years ago at this point. Yeah, it's been 15 years now. 15 years ago, I did have a bicep rupture while deadlifting. Now, granted, it was over 600 pounds on the bar when that happened. But these things do happen. They do happen. So I think that some of the horseplay needs to go away, but I can appreciate the fact that they did that. Now, some people are going to say, well, what do you mean? What was your concerns with it? Well, lack of enforcement of the rules. And it's like, even when you're doing a friendly challenge, man, when you set a rule and a standard, and you guys got to follow the rules. Now, again, that's the meat judge in me, because, again, I am a certified meat judge. If there's a rule in place, I'm not letting a single violation of that rule happen, or I'm going to not count the lift. And I mean the smallest violation. We'll jump over to the bench and the deadlift in a minute of what I was concerned with a little bit in terms of safety. And I think it's important to address that because a lot of their younger followers are going to see that and say, hey, I want to go try this. I want to do that. And, well, there's some stuff being shown there that if you guys do too consistently, you're going to really run a risk of injury. And it's because a lot of these guys didn't really know how to perform these lifts correctly. And the guys supposed to enforce the rules didn't do the best job of enforcing that. So let's come over and talk about the chin-up first, because that was actually the worst one in terms of people actually doing it. Now, a chin-up is anyone who knows what a chin-up is. You start with your arms locked at the bottom, right? You're fully extended. You come all the way down, then you pull yourself up, and you get your chin over the bar, right? That's a chin-up. It's a chin-up. How many chin-ups did any of those guys do? Other than the skinny black dude. He got several. Did anybody in that group get more than one chin-up? KSI got one, his first one. I think I saw another dude who started from a dead hang and got one rep. So outside of that one guy, I don't think any of those guys got more than one chin-up, but they were counting them. And the guy clearly said all the way down, and he should have immediately, if you're going to say, hey, this is a rule, we're doing chin-ups, you know, how many are you guys doing? Because it's not a valid comparison of different guys. You can't say, well, I do 3/4 reps, so no, that doesn't count, man. You can do one chin-up. Because if they could do two, they would have done a second one from a dead hang before they started cheating, right? And this is just, again, me as, you know, with a strength background. I know that watching lifters. Someone who is capable of doing 2 or 3 chin-ups will do 2 or 3 chin-ups before they start cheating. These guys were all capable of 1. Other than that one dude, and he cranked out a bunch. And I want to say probably maybe 6 or 7 of his 12, I think, that he got actually would have counted because he came all the way down. But, you know, he crushed all of them on that. But it's kind of the point we get to. You know, it's like you said, a standard there. Go ahead and enforce it. Now, as far as the other lifts go, the bench pressing and the deadlift, and here's what I would say to any of the followers chiming in. None of these guys are strong. And when I mean strong, I don't even mean strong for inexperienced lifters. Like even KSI's lifts, realistically, the average, genetically average person with no athletic gifts at all, no real predisposition towards strength, you should be able to catch him inside of a year. On just a proper structured strength program, like where KSI is at, is about a 1-year standard. 1 year in the gym. Now, for people who are new to lifting or who've never trained at all on a real strength program, they're going to say that's crazy. No, not at all. And for his body weight, that's not even good for 1 year. I mean, the guy's weighing 220, he's 100 kilograms. I weigh a hair under that. I weigh a hair under that, and I'm in my 40s. So put that in perspective. And I wouldn't have been happy with those lifts. So what do I mean is a strength standard? They will always tell guys you should be able to at the end of a first year, and I have programs that'll do this. I mean, so if you guys check out my own playlist, I mean, I've got programs you guys can see that'll get you beyond where he is at in a year, year and a half. You would be able to crush him and probably do so at a lighter body weight, and that's just normal strength training. So let's come over to the problems we did see with the lifts. The bench press, just straight up, every one of those guys was doing a guillotine press. All right, which means they're coming up here, right? Elbows flared at the bottom, barbell above the nipples. Upper chest, that is a guillotine press. That is dangerous. You can hurt your rotator cuffs. You can hurt your shoulders doing that. That is not the correct way to bench press. I've got a lot of tutorials up, multiple tutorials teaching how to bench press, showing correct form all on this channel. But on a bench press, generally you want the bar below the nipple, right? You want it down here. Elbows tucked at the bottom, no wider than 45 degrees at the bottom, and then you flare and pop on the way up, right? Lower chest, and they were all coming upper chest. Now, why is that also a problem with what they did as far as it counting as a bench press, and why I say that they are weaker than you would think? Because KSI got, in theory, what, about 250 pounds, 115 kilograms? He didn't actually get it, though, because there was no pause. A lot of these guys weren't touching their chest. For a bench press to count in any sort of competitive environment, for you to say, hey, I bench more than you, or I could bench as much as this lifter, it's got to be paused. Bar has to come to a dead stop on your chest. And then the meet judge at a powerlifting meet tells you to press. So once they've realized, say that your bar's come to a stop, it's paused, they'll say press, and you press it. Okay? It doesn't count otherwise. And I mean, you're talking about sometimes a very substantial difference in the amount of weight you can handle. Other thing, I mean, they were doing wrong, a lot of them, your feet are not allowed to move. So, I mean, you've got to actually be able to bench press something, and you can't have any up and down of the bar. So, I mean, if the bar dips at all on the way up on either side, that lift doesn't count. You're not strong enough to bench press it. You're having to cheat and grind through a weight that you can't actually lift. So realistically, his bench press should have probably been about 10 kilos, about 20, 22 pounds lighter than what he did, and that's realistically where KSI is at. I mean, on a real bench press. So there was a lot of that just kind of goofing off going on there, but the main thing is that bad form, that upper chest benching, absolutely not. That's a problem, and so that was my biggest concern. But I'm going to watch young viewers who might be watching that who are going to say, oh, I want to go bench. It's like, don't replicate what they were doing. These guys don't know how to bench. They're not lifters. And every one of them bench pressed in a manner that, again, in my experience, my opinion, is going to have a higher risk of injury, and there's no benefit to doing it, right? We want to lift to get bigger, to get stronger, even to compete in a strength sport or whatever your goals happen to be. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing. That should be encouraged. But you got to learn how to train correctly, and that includes even lifting, even goofing around for fun, because that's actually when you're more likely to get hurt than anything. And that's my concern with something like a guillotine press for a 1-rep max. Right? You're using one of the more dangerous forms, the higher risk forms of a bench press, when being cheered on by your bros to lift the heaviest weight you've ever lifted. That's a problem. That's a problem. And so that's a concern in an environment like that. Then it comes over to the deadlifts. All of them, of course, were doing reasonably clean deadlifts at the start. The problem you have is that a lot of them were trying to do a clean style deadlift instead of, say, a thoracic rounding. Well, the problem you ran into, because a lot of them were trying to, again, use thoracic extension out of the bottom, their asses were all shooting up. So as the weight got heavier and heavier, what did you see more and more of? Guys starting the deadlift completely flat-backed all the way over. And then those hips shooting up. All right, that is not how you deadlift. That's a problem also. So that was a real concern as you watch as the weight started getting heavier. A lot of them didn't know how to set up. They didn't know how to pull off the floor. And they're putting their backs into pretty risky, compromising positions. Well, that's not the correct way to deadlift. And what I mean is that, again, you shouldn't be having your head way up. Your neck should be neutral, right? So if you're having to put your back in a position where your head is all the way up and you're bent all the way forward, like a lot of them are doing, you end up lifting with your back completely flat, compared to the floor. That is, think about the shear stress being put on your lower back. That's not the correct way to deadlift. Now, fortunately, none of them were strong. None of them were strong on the deadlift, including KSI, so therefore the risk wasn't as high, but still, when you're a weaker person and you have a weaker back, even a relatively lightweight, even 300 pounds could really hurt you seriously in a bad position if you're weak. Now, a stronger person, yeah, it doesn't matter. You know, a lot of us like to do deadlifting like that purely as an accessory movement, right? That stiff leg type deadlift like that, where you're starting completely bent over with your back parallel to the floor. A lot of times we'll do that with lighter weights like 350, 400 pounds, 450. You know, a lot of lifters do that, right? But you're doing it with light weights relative to what you can lift, because you're doing it purely to strengthen your back to prevent injuries as an accessory movement. But to actually do something like that with a weight that's approaching your max, that's dangerous. That's dangerous, and that's how you get hurt. And it's stuff like that that gives deadlifts a bad name. And that's the thing right there. The guy who's there supposed to enforce good form, he should have shut that down immediately. Should have shut it down immediately. And the other thing too, like one of the guys, or the guy in the muscle suit, was using excessive amounts of like arm bar, like arm bending, and just jerking the weight off the floor without his elbows locked. Again, that's bad stuff. Your elbows need to always be locked before you pull the slack out of the bar. Never, ever, ever have arm bend when you go to actually pull the weight, unless you want this to happen. And it's not pretty, because you have to get that surgically reattached, because your bicep rolls up and retracts up into your shoulder like a big tennis ball. Again, I've been there. I've had it corrected. I've had a surgery to fix it. Lesson learned 15 years ago. So that was one of the things that really bothered me too. One of the guys hit a max deadlift where he started with the arms bent and just jerked it off, tried to jerk it up off the floor, and he missed the lift. You talk about a very, very, very high risk of a bicep rupture right there. And he had enough weight on the bar for an inexperienced lifter to actually tear his bicep when doing that. So that was definitely a concern also. So I did wish before these guys did this challenge that some of them had spent a little bit of time learning correct and safe technique on the deadlift before they got up and did the challenge. It just would have been better. But all in all, I can appreciate the fact that these are guys that are mostly inexperienced lifters, non-lifters who are trying to get into lifting. They're showing it for their followers, maybe get their followers into lifting. I think that's a good thing personally. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.